protocols adopted, but where is the action? What happened, for instance, to the commitment in 2007 of the EU member states to spend at least 1% of GDP on research and development? And we know the OECD recommends at least 3%. I think Africa is currently at 0.4%. So we need a translation of words into action. We need a decade of action for Africa's transformation. There is enough evidence out there and examples of other countries who made this transition to be able to say it pays to invest in science, technology, and innovation. The challenge is the general lack of political support and commitment. And this calls for strong policies for science and for strong science to inform policy. So let me stop here and over to you, Jean-Paul. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hubert, for those excellent remarks and for, I think, really reminding us on some of the key issues. I did, unfortunately, lose a part of the call, part of the conversation, because I was disconnected for a brief moment. So I may have missed some of your key points. But I think the main element, particularly about avoiding carbon-based development models, because they are no longer relevant. By investing in carbon-based development models now, you're actually locking yourself into an uncompetitive resource base for a long period of time. And all of the new technologies that are emerging are more towards green technologies. And harnessing them means that African countries have to be going in that direction also, and facilitating the innovation for them to have more homegrown elements of technology. This links in with the imbalance of skills and capacity and the jobs also that are available in the market, recognizing that a large number of degree holders or people who have high diplomas not necessarily being employed in sectors that they trained for, and there's a necessity to therefore completely review the link with educational and capacity building mechanisms. You flagged the importance of cooperation and collaboration, and the example on innovation happens when you can also cooperate well across borders and build on technologies that are developed elsewhere. We noted the importance of e-learning as a key facilitator. And the final point, I think, is one that drives us to action, is that we must bridge that gap between the commitments and actions. And the example of the spending on research and development is a particularly glaring case. And there are a number of other areas, because we're talking about the pandemic. We know that in healthcare as well, there were commitments of spending above 10% of GDP, up to 15% of GDP on healthcare to achieve universal healthcare. And these are all areas which we must look at the levers of investment that go beyond the simple statements. And perhaps this is even more important in the era of COVID-19, where we are connected by the virtue of technology, but we have to ensure that this connection follows through in relation to actions. So thank you so much, Professor, for your intervention. We will now go to the representative of the African Development Bank, Hendrina Chalwe-Doroba. If you're online, can you unmute your mic and take the floor? And I will ask Dr. Wilhelmina K to stand by just after. I know we were having some difficulties before, but I hope that this can be addressed. So Hendrina Chalwe-Doroba, if you are available, can you unmute yourself and take the floor?
Being upgraded to panelist.
Okay. So you're upgrading them to panelists. Thank you. Is that done yet? Okay, we see. Yeah. Thank you, Hendrina. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. The floor is yours for your remarks. You are still muted. Hold on one second. Let's see if we can unmute you centrally. Please unmute yourself if you can.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect. Okay. And we can see you. Proceed.
Okay. All right.
And a great background of Victoria Falls.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and all protocols observed. Like you rightly put it, I'm standing in for my director who has not been able to join us at this time because of other emergency issues that came up. So allow me just to highlight 3 or 4 key issues that she could have highlighted on behalf of the bank. The first issue, excuse me, that I'll look at is really around human capital development. And I think we just need to recognize that, the COVID-19 actually intensified the need for Africa to invest in science, technology, and innovation, for us to be able to develop homegrown solutions for our own local challenges. We've also seen the need for us to think globally, but also to act locally, to be able to provide socioeconomic transformation for our own continent. So the idea of us making sure that we generate talent, which could be able to translate the issues into action is critical. And therefore, as a bank, we are looking at how can we work together to make sure that we are able to generate talent that ultimately translates the quality skills workers, entrepreneurs, and innovators to be able to drive the economy. The other point is around building the capacity of the institutions that are supposed to be leading in scientific innovations. And we're talking about either higher institutions of learning, which could be the universities, but also looking at the technical vocational institutions. I think you do recall that in the previous conversation, we've been looking at the underinvestment in the area of building capacity of the staff that are responsible for that. But more importantly, also looking at investment in research and development, which I would not want to dwell because I know the previous speakers have spoken to that. There's a critical need as a continent to really make sure that we invest in research and development, and just to make sure that we have the right skills mix to be able to move some of the ideas in the research and development and moving them into industry and production. If we are to actively contribute to development of our own homegrown solution, or to call what we would say sustainable solutions for Africa's problem. The second point is around innovative financing. As you have heard again that, the commitment is one thing, like we have all said, of 1%, for instance, for research and development, but being able to mobilize those resources and make sure that we are able to invest the required amount of investment into the sector is critical. Otherwise, like others have said, we will be talking and it will be very difficult to take action. As we all know now, because of the limited investment in the sector, scientists are not able to push their agendas forward. But just drawing from some of the work that the bank has done, for instance, when we did the Africa versus virus, it was quite evident from the number of youth that were able to generate ideas, and just to show that the potential that the continent has, if only we can invest a little more into our work, I'm sure we'll be able to find solutions to our own problems. The other point is also looking at moving at the new paradigm shift in as far as mobilizing resources is concerned. Besides being accountable and making sure that we use resources as diligently as we can, also promoting private sector contribution to STI would be critical. I know that we've talked about that, but I think it's something that we really need to look inwardly and see how best can we engage the private sector to be able to develop science, technology, and innovation to a level that we can comfortably say we'll be able to contribute to economic transformation of this continent. As a bank, on the aspect innovative financing, I also want to mention that we are working in close collaboration with the African Union Commission towards developing an innovative financing mechanism, which we are calling the Africa Education Science, Technology and Innovation Fund, We hope that once this fund is established, it will also be able to stimulate long-term investment in science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. Of course, this is a fund in making. We hope that it will be set up by December. But again, it's an aspect of looking at how can we help African government to be able to mobilize resources internally, but also use them to the purpose that it is intended. And we hope that this fund will help in terms of strengthening domestic financing, accountability, but also innovative financing mechanism, looking inwardly in the respective countries. As a bank, we are also working on developing skills for decent job strategy, which is going to be our next strategy starting mid this year. And we believe that this strategy will help to ensure continuity in as far as banks' investment in education and skills development is concerned, with particular emphasis on technical vocational education, higher education, and looking at science, technology, innovation, and mathematics. So in conclusion, I would like to say it is important that we cement the gains accomplished over the several years. I know we have accomplished many, but Africa's resilience on sustainable recovery will certainly require joint effort in our intervention in science, technology, and innovation. And as a bank, we stand firm to build partnership, and we continue to work with stakeholders to transform the STI for sustainable development in Africa. I would like to stop here for now and happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Thank you so much, Hendrina. Thank you so much for those words and for sharing those thoughts with us in a number of areas of priority, which I think really help us to focus our efforts. We will now go to Dr. Wilhelmina Kay, and I hope that you are able to take the floor, Dr. Kay, so that we can hear your thoughts. Over to you. So, Dr. Kay, we can see you, and you just need to unmute yourself. The button for unmuting should be the bottom left of your screen. I don't know if that's the problem.
Unmuted.
Can you hear us? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry for that. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
I'm actually unmuted.
I think it would be better to remove the video because there might be some streaming problems. And sometimes the connection is better if you remove the video. We could hear you before. So I would suggest remove the video and try speaking without the video. Thank you.
So, I'd like to stress on the... Okay.
We hear you. We hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'd like to stress on the need to governance systems that pay particular attention to resources in terms of the SC, in terms of SCI institutions having to work effectively, also having to bridge the gap between research and industry, and also an arrangement system in place, especially the role of the private sector. Here, I would want to stress also on the point that with emerging technologies, you cannot leave the youth and gender behind. And so we need to have a very strong youth and gender perspectives in our thinking, and also having to make sure that SCI is actually mainstream in all our sectorial policies. So, for example, we should have this SCI for SDG roadmap that connects all the dots to make sure that SCI is actually given the relevancy that it deserves in all our thinking and planning, and also making sure that we have the resources to put them into action. I would like to say that we know we have developmental challenges, and all of these have answers that SCI can't be leveraged to resolve. Ineffective coordination, inadequate financing, weak linkage between industry and research systems, inefficiencies in implementation of SCI policies. All these require some special attention, especially in our planning, and also giving the right advice, policy advice for SCI to have the attention that it deserves. As a country, I will take the example of Ghana. We have pursued this SCI for SC. You look at the SCI gaps analysis for all the sectors. So, for example, if you take that risk sector, what are the challenges and what can SCI issues that can SCI be addressed? And here we have challenges that we need strong participation of the private sector. And I cannot leave this, I cannot understate this enough. We need the private sector. We need the enabling environment that encourages the role of the youth and gender in our effort to leverage on technologies. Again, if you look at the industry sector, industry is very much into employment creation. You cannot have employment being created with weak industry systems. So, for example, if you take the manufacturing sector, in the case of Ghana, you have issues with high cost of capital, limited access to long-term financing, unreliable power supply, weak infrastructure support, cyber security and internet fraud, influx of foreign competitive products that actually push down prices and make our locally produced goods and services unattractive. And all these can be resolved if you have strong SCI plans. I would also want to state that in this day and age, the relevance of renewable energy technologies to address energy challenges is very much critical. We need software platforms, Internet of Things, big data analytics. We need smart production and smart factory systems, additive manufacturing. All these are technologies that we need to be able to assess and also have very good feasibility plans that can actually attract the investment that we need in the sector. If you take the health sector, you cannot do away with the fact that we have limited resources in terms of our low patient to doctor ratio. And this, we need to do a lot of training in this aspect, especially making sure that our medical education system is strengthened, especially in areas of herbal medicine, biomedical science, drug discovery, and also health tourism. Here in Ghana, we have a strong COVID response plan and also plan to make sure that in enterprises that have been affected are being given the necessary attention that they need. Already, there have been a lot of discussion around Education 5.0, where human capability needs in terms of the STI development is strong. ICT infrastructure for e-learning cannot be underrated. Also, improving the quality and relevance of education in our times, making sure that we churn out employable graduates that have entrepreneurial skills to create the jobs that we need. There's so much unemployment, and this have answers to STI. We need to move from society 2.0, the agrarian, to industrialization, also looking at information as well as the smart specialization era that we are in now. And all these have root to science, technology, and innovation. I want to end by saying that the issue of financing and having to, allocate enough adequate resources has become very critical. And we cannot just leave it to the government. We need the private sector to play a role in this. In conclusion, I would say that it is urgent for us to apply SCI in all the productive sectors of the economy and make sure that we accelerate the achievement of SDGs, all goals, and the target that we have in our plans. We cannot afford not to invest and leverage on emerging technologies. The artificial intelligence, nanotechnology have been stressed here, especially in the area of job creation and socio-economic development. The industry sector, we need to do something about it with our STI measures. I want to conclude by a quotation from our former first president, Kwame Nkrumah, who says that we shall accumulate machinery and establish street works iron fire link the various sectors of our continent with communication. We shall stood the world with our hydroelectric power. We shall drain our marshes and our swamps, clean our infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people rid them of parasites and diseases. It is within the possibility of science, technology, to make even the Sahara blossom into a vast field with vegetation for agriculture and industrial development. This is a quotation coming from our president, and it has become beyond the walls in terms of societal challenges, economic and environmental challenges with SCI application. The need to collaborate together on the continent in terms of closing the SCI gaps is key, and it has become very critical. The need for open science, referencing its massive application in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, the need to redesign our education system in respect of industrialization, modernization of Africa, and training our graduates with entrepreneurial mindset. Also responding to provisions of services and goods that actually meet human needs. This is my concluding remarks. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kay, and thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us. And we now would like to move. We don't have too much time, unfortunately, so I won't take a long time to summarize your points. We have one more speaker who is the representative of the Minister of Congo. We have Mr. Aimé Madiel Mabika. Votre Excellence, vous êtes à la direction générale du ministère de la Recherche scientifique. Monsieur Aimé Madiel Mabika, je vous passe la parole pour dire quelques mots de la part de la présidence congolaise. Et puis nous avons besoin de terminer cette session pour 15h45 parce que nous avons l'ouverture officielle qui va démarrer.
Bonjour, monsieur Adam.
Alors, bonjour, bienvenue et merci d'être avec nous. Je sais que le ministre a eu un empêchement, mais merci de partager le point de vue du gouvernement du Congo. Et puis, je vais juste demander aux autres panélistes qui ont déjà parlé de faire la synthèse en quelques mots. Et s'il y a des personnes qui ont des questions, merci de les mettre dans le Q&A ou dans la messagerie pour qu'on réponde avant la fin de la session dans un quart d'heure. Alors, Monsieur Aimé, la parole est à vous. Je vous accorde 5 minutes. Merci.
Oui, merci, Monsieur Jean-Paul. En bon rang et qualité, je prends la parole au nom de Monsieur le ministre de la Recherche scientifique et de l'Innovation technologique, qui n'a pas pu se joindre à nous. En effet, en réitérant les engagements pris à l'issue du premier forum régional africain sur la STI, qui s'est tenu en 2019 au Maroc, ou du deuxième forum régional africain sur la STI, tenu au Zimbabwe en 2020, le troisième forum dont le relais revient au Congo et qui sera dirigé pendant un mandat, pendant toute cette année, par M. Parfait Mekoussouma Vungu, a pris les priorités et s'engage, c'est-à-dire le Congo s'engage à prendre quelques priorités, à savoir de maintenir les STI en tête de liste de nos agendas de développement à l'échelle nationale, en veillant à réparer les liens avec nos ressources naturelles et le potentiel de nos chaînes de valeur. Aussi, de renforcer les établissements d'enseignement supérieur et nos organismes publics de recherche en tant que composante essentielle des écosystèmes STI, afin de construire une base solide et pertinente en matière de capital humain. Alors, toujours dans les priorités congolaises sur le STI, il va falloir d'encourager l'émergence et le développement d'initiatives privées en recherche et développement afin d'élargir le champ de l'innovation qui est capital pour stimuler l'industrialisation, l'emploi des jeunes et la création des richesses. Et enfin, le Congo doit se forcer de réduire le fossé technique qui existe entre le Nord et le Sud en mettant en place des infrastructures nécessaires pour son développement à travers le STI. Voilà, M. Jean-Paul, telles sont les priorités qui se donnent le Congo sur le STI. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Aimé Madiel Mabika, d'avoir partagé tes propos avec nous. et d'avoir souligné les priorités pour la partie congolaise, la présidence congolaise, et aussi du travail et aussi de vous remercier que le travail déjà fait en collaboration avec la présidence sortante, et aussi de continuer ce travail pendant l'année pour que justement on se penche sur des actions concrètes pour un rapport avec plein d'acquis lors du 8e forum qui aura lieu l'année prochaine. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes before we conclude. I would invite each panelist in 2 minutes to summarize their priority takeaway. And Christine, I will start with you. What is the key priority that you would like to see that Africa can do in the immediate, leveraging science, technology, and innovation to build forward better? Christina, over to you again. Thank you.
Did you hear me, Jean-Paul?
We hear you perfectly, and we see you as well perfectly.
Yes, thank you. Allow me to make my last statement, taking as a starting point COVID-19 disruptions and how we should take these disruptions with a forward-looking and see as opportunities. First, I would like to say that one of the disruptions that we need to grab from an African standpoint is at human capital level. We have a huge opportunity to place human capital at the center of policymaking in Africa, education and health. Second is financing for development. It's clear for everybody that if you do not reboot financing for developments, we will not be able to grab or to transform disruptions in opportunities. And in terms of financing for development, COVID-19 is just telling us very clear. Illicit financial flows is the hanging fruit that we need to grab and to start addressing our financing needs from inside. We cannot, at the same time, apply for debt relief, be eaten in a strong way by credit rating agencies, downgrades because we use the facility, at the same time, we lose $89 billion as illicit financial flows. So COVID-19 is giving us, from a policy-making standpoint, a huge opportunity to address this paradox. Third, we need identifying a clear way among among dozens of priorities, Jean-Paul, what are the strategic assets? What are the drivers, the asset drivers that will generate a huge multiplier effect and spillovers? And for me, there are three. First, energy. Energy is our Hakalzil. Second, continental free trade area is our huge asset. Someone said that our stimulus package for Africa to recover forward better is to implement in a very efficient way the continental free trade area. Is a huge driver from an asset standpoint. And third, industrialization in a such way that we need to address and manage the trade-offs between climate change, climate adaptation, and renewable energies. Of course, to address these three issues, human capital, financing for development, and strategic assets, there are two enablers, cross-cutting issues. First, institutions. We cannot, I think will be difficult to deliver economic growth with a strong development dimension if you do not invest in a strong way in these intangible asset institutions. And second, innovation and technology. Thank you. Back to you, Jean-Paul.
Thank you so much, Christina. This is extremely clear, and I know that the rapporteurs have probably taken note exactly of what you have said, because I think it's very good for key messages at the end of our forum. Thank you so much. Hubert, I will go to you now for 2 minutes for your quick takeaway priorities in the immediate to build forward better.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. I will be very short. Tomorrow is 4th of March, and the 4th of March, we will celebrate the World Engineering Day. And what I believe is that COVID has actually also reminded us of the importance of engineering. Now, you would wonder, how is that? When the pandemic hit the world turned into E-mode. We're meeting now over internet. And that ensured in many parts of the world the continuity of businesses, of education, of many other sectors, but not in sub-Saharan Africa, which lacks the ICTs, it lacks even energy access. And just to illustrate this, in sub-Saharan Africa, over 50% of schools have no energy access. They are off-grid. And now let even ICTs, I mean, that percent is much, much higher. So this really has brought to the fore the need to fast track and now renewable energy and ICTs in Africa. But now also as a strategy to fast track the SDG achievements. Including for those most left behind, as I just said, in rural off-grid situations. Just imagine what this can do, how catalytic this effect could be if you bring renewable energy and ICTs into rural off-grid situations. The multitude of local economic spin-off activities that become possible. I mean, it will change a world for those in these rural situations. Yeah, just as a main takeaway, so that was just a reminder of the World Engineering Day, and I hope you will, all of you are invited to join the celebrations tomorrow. We will, as UNESCO, launch the World Engineering Report. After 10 years, there's an updated report. It's high time for it. So all of you welcome to that. And then just as takeaway to remind of the 4 key messages I spoke about just before. 1, avoid earlier mistakes by others and move faster. 2, boost capacities and focus on women and youth. 3, mobilize the power of connectivity and cooperation. And 4, prioritize investments in R&D and in science, technology, and innovation. Over to you, Jean-Paul.
Thank you so much, Hubert, again for the clarity and focusing on tangible action, which, as you pointed out, is really what we need. So Hendrina Chalwe-Doroba, over to you from ADB for AFDB for some quick concluding remarks. 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I have 3 concluding remarks. The first one is to say investment in high-level skills development is critical, particularly focusing on higher education, TVET, research and innovation. I think it's important for us to build these regional capacities in order to be able to innovate and commercialize these innovations for us to find a sustainable solution to our problems. The second point is around leveraging and building partnership with key stakeholders, making sure that, of course, we build quality and relevant skills. But more importantly, we need to strengthen the continental digital infrastructure. I mean, what COVID has taught us is that we can learn anywhere and anytime, but we need to make sure that we have, besides the energy, but making sure that we have digital infrastructure that will enable us to be able to create knowledge, to be able to strengthen the skills, and of course, to be able to participate effectively in the current 4th industrial revolution. The third point, and maybe the last, is around innovative financing. I think there's need for us to have a new paradigm shift in terms of how we mobilize resources, but also more importantly on how we promote private sector engagement, which is more inclusive, both in terms of resource allocation, in terms of organization, but also in terms of how we use the innovative financing, innovative tools to be able to support STI. So partnership is critical. Human capacity is critical, but also infrastructure, which should include ICT, is critical. Thank you so much, and over to you, June.
Thank you so much, Andrina, and for following the rule of three and being very clear on the recommendations. That's really perfect. Thank you so much. We now go to Dr. K for your final thoughts. 2 minutes, please, before we conclude with the remarks from the representative of the presidency. Thank you so much. Dr. K, over to you.
Yeah, so my remarks will be on entrepreneur.
Okay, I think we've unfortunately lost Dr. K. So I really apologize for that to everyone. And with that in mind and our tight time frame, je voudrais maintenant inviter le représentant du gouvernement congolais, Monsieur Aimé Madiel Mabika, de prendre la parole pour les derniers mots de la présidence congolaise. À vous la parole. Monsieur Aimé. Monsieur Aimé, vous êtes avec nous? Ok, il paraît que peut-être on a perdu Monsieur Aimé Madiel Mabika. Dans ce contexte, je voudrais juste prendre les derniers moments pour remercier tous les panélistes, remercier tout le monde pour les messages très clairs qui suivent le débat très riche et très approfondi que nous avons eu la semaine dernière dans le forum sur la science, technologie et l'innovation en Afrique, qui a aussi été accompagné par un atelier de formation dans les domaines des technologies émergentes pour les jeunes. Et nous avons vu aujourd'hui, à travers les interventions, l'importance de mettre en valeur l'importance de la science, technologie et l'innovation, de privilégier des chaînes de valeur régionales aussi bien que nationales, aussi de l'importance de la propriété intellectuelle, l'importance aussi de bâtir les compétences en Afrique sur justement la mobilisation de la propriété intellectuelle, de revoir le cadre législatif, aussi d'éviter les erreurs du passé en ce qui concerne l'investissement dans les hydrocarbures et plutôt privilégier un modèle de développement vert et qui priorise l'énergie renouvelable, qui regarde aussi l'aspect de la formation en ligne, de regarder le lien entre les compétences acquises et les entreprises, aussi des nouvelles technologies en ce qui concerne l'accès à l'Internet, la production qui est adaptée, la production verte, la production qui est adaptée aux besoins de notre continent et le renforcement des capacités. Et n'oublions pas aussi l'importance d'investir dans la recherche et le développement et l'importance du financement, que c'est peut-être un des plus grands défis pour le continent africain dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre des objectifs de développement durable et aussi la lutte contre le changement climatique. Mais nous notons que tous les panélistes ont mis l'accent sur des actions concrètes, de l'importance d'agir rapidement et tout de suite pour changer la donne en ce qui concerne le développement durable. Et la science, la technologie et l'innovation est un levier que nous, les pays africains, pouvons utiliser à accélérer notre développement et assurer une croissance verte et un développement inclusif. Je remercie tous les panélistes. Ça a été un débat très riche. Je vous souhaite tous un bon après-midi et de nous rejoindre dans la cérémonie d'ouverture officielle qui aura lieu dans un quart d'heure. et aussi de continuer votre participation dans les différents événements. Et aussi, rendez-vous pour les messages clés de ce forum, surtout en ce qui concerne la science, technologie et l'innovation, qui seront adoptés demain. Merci à tous et bon après-midi, bonne fin de journée et à très bientôt. Rendez-vous très prochainement. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Jean-Paul. Merci, Jean-Paul.
Merci. Obrigado.
Obrigada.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all.
Thank you, Hubert. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. K. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.